Three Musketeers, Chapter 8, A Court Intrigue. Like all things in this world, the 40 pistoles given by the king finally came to an end, and the four friends then fell on hard times. Athos briefly sustained the group with his own money. Then, thanks to one of the disappearances that were common to him, Porthos supplied their need for nearly 2 weeks. Next, Aramis took his turn with good grace and contributed a few pistoles that he had obtained, he said, by selling his theology books. Finally, they resorted to Monsieur de Treville, as usual, and he gave them an advance on their pay. But this was a short-lived solution for Three Musketeers who already had many unpaid bills and a guard who as yet had none. When they were about to run short of everything, they scraped together 9 or 10 pistoles and gave them to Porthos to gamble with. He lost it all in a streak of bad luck and ran up a debt of 25 pistoles more. Their straitened circumstances now became outright poverty. Followed by their servants, they roamed the streets and visited guard-rooms on the lookout for friends who would invite them to dinner, for they had followed Aramis's advice and been generous with meals in times of prosperity, so as to get them back in times of need. Athos was invited 4 times and always brought his friends and their servants. Porthos had 6 invitations and also let his friends benefit from them. Aramis had 8. He was a man who spoke little and did much. Since D'Artagnan did not yet know anyone in Paris, he was only able to arrange for chocolate with a priest from his home province and dinner with an ensign of the guards. He led his little army to the priest, who lost a stock of food that was to have lasted him a month, and to the consigne, who made a heroic effort to satisfy their hunger, but as Planchet said, no matter how big a meal might be, it can only be eaten once. D'Artagnan felt humiliated at only having been able to provide a meal and a half. The priest's contribution could be counted only as half a meal. In exchange for the feast provided by Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, he considered himself a burden on them, forgetting that he had fed them for a month. His worry prompted him to begin to try to think of a way to improve their situation. He told himself that a coalition of 4 brave, enterprising, and vigorous young men should have a better purpose than swaggering in public, taking fencing practice, and joking in ways that did not always show great wit. They were so closely united that they shared whatever they had, and each was always ready to help the others, even at the risk of death. They made plans together and carried them out either individually or as a group. They were like 4 arms that sometimes joined in a single attack and sometimes separated to ward off danger from any direction. 4 men like that could surely overcome all obstacles in their path, using their force and their guile to reach any goal that they chose, no matter how distant or well defended it might be. D'Artagnan was surprised that his companions had not thought of this idea before he did. He racked his brains in search of a purpose to which that 4-fold force could be applied. He had no doubt that like Archimedes' lever, it could lift the world if properly applied. Suddenly, he heard a gentle knock on the door. He woke Planchet and told him to see who it was. From the fact that he woke Planchet, the reader should not conclude that it was night. No, it was only a little past 4 in the afternoon. 2 hours earlier, Planchet had asked for something to eat. D'Artagnan had replied with the proverb, "Sleep is a poor man's dinner," and Planchet had taken his advice. He opened the door and showed in D'Artagnan's visitor, an ordinary-looking man who seemed to be some sort of tradesman. Planchet said he would like to hear. Planchet would have liked to have heard the conversation, but the man told D'Artagnan that what he had to say was important and confidential, and that he wanted to speak to him alone. D'Artagnan sent Planchet away and invited his visitor to sit down. There was a moment of silence during which the 2 men scrutinized each other. Then D'Artagnan nodded as a sign that he was listening. "I've heard you spoken of as a very brave young man," said the visitor, "and because I believe that you deserve that reputation, I've decided to confide in you a secret." "I'm willing to hear what you have to say," replied D'Artagnan, instinctively sensing something that might be of advantage to him. My wife is the Queen's linen maid, said the stranger continued, after another moment of silence. She's a good woman and quite pretty. Our marriage was arranged nearly 3 years ago, even though she had only a small dowry, because Monsieur de la Porte is the Queen's gentleman-in-waiting and her godfather, and has taken her under his protection. Go on. Well, sir, my wife was abducted yesterday morning as she was leaving her workroom. Who abducted her? I don't know for sure, sir, but I suspect someone. And whom do you suspect? A man has been trying to force his intentions on her for a long time. Aha! But let me tell you something, sir. I'm convinced that love has less to do with this than politics. Politics, D'Artagnan said thoughtfully. What makes you think so? I don't know if I should tell you what I suspect. Let me point out to you that I did not ask you to come here. You came here of your own accord and said you have a secret to tell me. If you've changed your mind, you can leave without saying anything more. No, sir, I'll stay. You seem to be an honest young man, and I'll trust you. I think my wife was abducted not because of any love affair of hers, but because of a certain great lady's. Are you referring to Madame de Bois Tracy? Asked D'Artagnan, wanting to give the impression that he was well acquainted in court affairs. Higher, sir, higher. Madame Agnion? Still higher. Madame de Chevreuse? Higher, much higher. Do you mean the... D'Artagnan stopped short. Yes, sir, the terrified man replied so softly that D'Artagnan could scarcely hear him. And with whom is she having an affair? Who else could it be but the Duke of... Yes, sir, the man said even more softly. How do you know that? How do I know? Yes, either tell me everything or you understand. My wife told me, sir, my wife herself. And who told her? Monsieur de la Porte, her godfather, and the Queen's confidential agent. He put my wife in Her Majesty's service so that the Queen would have someone to rely on, since the King has abandoned her and the Cardinal spies on her and everyone betrays her. Ah, things are beginning to take shape, said D'Artagnan. 4 days ago my wife came to see me. One of the conditions of her service was that she could visit me twice a week because, I am proud to say, she loves me. She came to me and told me that the Queen was very, very much afraid. Afraid? Yes, sir. It seemed that the Cardinal is pursuing and persecuting her more than ever. He can't forgive her for the incident of the Saraband. You know about that, don't you, sir? Of course, said D'Artagnan, who had never heard of it before but wanted to seem well informed. And so now he's gone beyond hatred. He wants revenge. Really? The Queen thinks... Well, what does she think? That a letter has been sent to the Duke of Buckingham in her name. In the Queen's name? Yes, to make the Duke come back to Paris and fall into some sort of trap here. But how is it your wife is involved in all this? She's known to be devoted to the Queen, and they want to separate her from her mistress, or intimidate her so that she'll tell the Queen's secrets, or win her over so that she'll act like a spy. That seems likely, said D'Artagnan. And you say you know the man who abducted her? I said I thought I knew who he was. What's his name? I don't know. All I know is that he's an agent of the Cardinal. Have you seen him? Yes, my wife pointed him out to me one day. Can you describe him in a way that would make it possible to recognize him? Yes, he's a distinguished-looking gentleman with black hair, a swarthy face, piercing eyes, white teeth, and a scar on his temple. A scar on his temple, cried D'Artagnan, and with piercing eyes, white teeth, a swarthy face. He's my man from Meung. You say he's your man. Never mind, it has nothing to do with what we're discussing. No, I'm mistaken. If it simplifies things, because if your man is mine, then your revenge will also be mine, and I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Where can I find him? I have no idea. You have no information on where he lives? None. One day when I took my wife to the Louvre, he was coming out just as she was going in, and she pointed him out to me. That's all. It's all very vague. Who told you about your wife's abduction? Monsieur de la Porte. Did he give you any details? He didn't know any. Have you found out anything from other sources? Yes, I received... You received what? I don't know if I should tell you. Again? This time it's too late to turn back. And I won't turn back, by God, said the visitor, swearing to give himself courage. As sure as my name is Bonacieux. D'Artagnan cut him short. Your name is Bonacieux? That's right. Excuse me for interrupting you, but your name seems familiar to me. It's possible, sir. I'm your landlord. Ah, you're my landlord, said D'Artagnan, half rising to his feet and bowing to the man. Yes, sir, and since I haven't bothered you a single time, even though you've forgotten to pay your rent for the past 3 months. I'm sure you were simply distracted by your important occupations. I thought you might take my consideration into account. Of course, my dear Monsieur Bonacieux, I am grateful to you and to your tact. As I have told you, is there any way that I can be of service to you? I believe you, sir, and as I was about to say, as sure as my name is Bonacieux, I trust you. Good. You said you received something. What is it? Monsieur Bonacieux took a sheet of paper from his pocket and handed it to D'Artagnan. A letter? Yes, I received it this morning. D'Artagnan opened it, and since daylight was beginning to fade, he went over to the window. Bonacieux followed him. Don't look for your wife, said D'Artagnan read aloud. She will be returned to you when she is no longer needed. If you make the slightest effort to find her, you are lost. Well, that's clear as far as that goes, he remarked. But after all, it's only a threat. Yes, but it's a threat that frightens me. I'm not a swordsman, sir, not at all, and I'm afraid of the Bastille. I don't like the thought of the Bastille either any more than you do, said D'Artagnan. If it were only a matter of fighting, I wouldn't mind. But I was counting on you, sir. Oh? I've noticed that you constantly associate with a group of fine-looking musketeers, and since I know they're Monsieur de Treville's musketeers, and therefore enemies of the cardinal, I thought that you and your friends would be glad at a chance to help out a poor queen and do something against the cardinal at the same time. That was a reasonable assumption. I also thought that since you owed me 3 months' rent, and I'd never even mentioned it to you. Yes, you've already given me that reason, and that's an excellent one. Furthermore, since I never intend to mention you rent for as long as you give me the honor of living in my house. Very good. And finally, since I'm willing to give you 50 pistoles, if you should happen to be short of money for the moment, though I realize it's highly unlikely. Excellent. You must be rich, my dear Monsieur Bonacieux. Let's say I'm well off, sir. I have accumulated enough capital to give me an income of 2,000 or 3,000 écus a year. I made part of it in the drapery business and part of it by investing in the last voyage of the famous navigator Jean Macoy. So that you understand. Oh, what's the matter? Asked D'Artagnan. Look, there. Where? In that doorway across the street, a man in a cloak. It's my man! D'Artagnan and Bonacieux both exclaimed at the same time.